I'm Melody Bahan. I'm the Executive Director of Minnesota Film and TV. And
Great to
this
meet
is
you.
Jill Johansson,
Hi.
our incentive specialist. Jill will monitor the chat and the Q&A. So those of you who are attending, feel free to send in your questions, comments, whatever, and we will get to all of those. I will introduce our panelists shortly. And there we go. Okay, there he is. But first, I want to just make a couple of really brief announcements. Minnesota Film and TV, for those of you who don't know, is Minnesota's state film office. Although we are not an state agency, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. But we serve all of the purposes that a normal film commission would. Because we're a nonprofit, we fundraise, and we are having our annual, although it hasn't been annual recently, our annual fundraising event on June 15th. And Jill will put information about that in the chat. You can find that on our website at mnfilmtv.org. Would love to see folks there, or at any other events that we have coming up. One other thing that I want to let everyone who's on here know about is a workshop that we are offering on June 25th. We have not really publicized this in a big way, but we're going to start doing that next week. I have let some folks know about it, but for everybody who's in this room, if you are interested, please sign up for it. This is a free workshop for 3 hours, I think, on June 25th, which is a Saturday. It is a production assistant training workshop. So it's for folks who are just starting out in the industry, looking to get information about working on a crew, or people who have worked as PAs who want a little brush up, refresher. The woman who will be leading this workshop is Alicia Daniels, who is a first AD who is based in Atlanta. And she's been doing these training workshops for a long time, has had some great success. So she's adapted it to do it as an online workshop for us in June. Our hope is that we'll be able to raise some funds at our fundraiser to bring Alicia here to do a full 2-day workshop for Minnesota. So please sign up for that if you are interested. So let's get started and have this conversation. I'm going to start by introducing Abdi Mohamed. Abdi is a Somali journalist and filmmaker from the Twin Cities. He began as a documentary filmmaker as a PA on multiple short and feature-length docs, such as Accept the Call, Dreaming in Somali. And he has worked as a freelance writer for publications like the Sehan Journal, Spokesman Recorder, and Min Post. In recent years, Abdi has worked as an associate producer on films such as Trusted Messenger and directed the short Temp. Since then, he's produced a podcast and has worked as a cultural consultant on Apple TV's Little America, which is one of the things we're going to talk about today. He is a former participant in Film North's Inclusive and Socially Conscious Filmmaking Lab, and currently a New Angle Fellow sponsored by SPNN and the Jerome Foundation, where he's producing a feature-length documentary. Abdi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Melody. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. No, I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you, Melody. Thank you, Jill, and thank you to my co-panelists. Abdimalik, Sharmaarke. Appreciate you guys for joining this. Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful thing to see this come to fruition. And Melody, you and I have had conversations in the past about the wonderful communities that we have in this wonderful state of Minnesota, and to have our community, Somali community, here highlighted is great and wonderful to be a part of this. So thank you.
So Abdi, why don't you introduce our panelists and have them tell us a little bit about themselves and their work.
Absolutely, yeah, I definitely can. I'll start off with Abdimalik here. Abdimalik Ahmed, born in San Diego, has always moved around and across the US and the UK. So we got international personalities here. He grew up being exposed to many different people, which kind of grew his love of storytelling from individual humans. He's an avid cinephile and is working on kickstarting a filmmaking career to be part of the cohort of telling stories locally here and abroad. Meanwhile, he worked on his first acting job recently. This is how I know Abdimalik, on an episode of the anthology series Little America. So welcome, Abdimalik.
Great.
Nice to meet you guys.
Thanks for being here. So when are you moving to Minnesota?
I actually live here.
Oh, you do? Okay, good.
But I moved around around the US and the UK as a kid, and finally settled here, and my family lives here now. So
great.
Yeah, looking to build some roots.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that nomad culture still prevails, we're nomadic people. And speaking of which, we got our brother over there on the West Coast, Sharmaarke. Sharmaarke Mohamed was born in Somalia and is an East African country located, of course, on the East Coast near Kenya and Ethiopia. At an early age, Sharmaarke began his love of filmmaking and study of Bollywood, Hollywood filmmaking. Through this passion, he began to understand and love the American culture. For some personal favorites of Sharmaarke's are, of course, Denzel Washington's Glory, Five Easy Pieces, which played a pivotal role in his career and his acting career. In addition, Sharmaarke taught himself how to read and write in 3 different languages, including English, and I can attest to, his linguistics definitely on a personal note. In the midst of his senior, Sharmaarke moved to San Diego, so another West Coast connection there between the two. In early 2013, hopes of finding a better life and pursuing his acting career. In addition to pursuing his career, Sharmaarke is also an overachiever in soccer, dancing, personal fitness, and is a boxer. He's also a person who practices the Muslim faith and exercises and does his meditation daily. He currently resides in Los Angeles and is in the pursuit, I believe that the pursuit of soul and body are highest amongst all. Some of Sharmaarke's work that people might have seen him in are in 10 Wise, Elite One, and he currently has a short film that is being promoted into the festival's award winning called The Come Up, which he stars in as well. So welcome, Sharmaarke.
Great. Before we go on, is Mohammed Sheikh supposed to be with us?
Mohammed Sheikh is, I think he's trying to listen in on the panel. Yeah.
Okay.
But shouts out to Mohammed Sheikh. He is a great filmmaker and producer in his own right. And yeah, great person to work with. And I think,
all right, Mohammed, you're in the right place. You're in the right place. Great. So I want to start by, I want to hear about everybody's work, but I'm going to start with Abdi and kind of how the genesis of this conversation. So most folks in the industry, when they think about Somali actors, if they ever think about Somali actors, they think about Minnesota. Mm-hmm. So our office, I got a call from a producer of the Apple TV series Little America. And if you haven't seen this series, I highly recommend it. It's Kumail Nanjiani is the executive producer. It's an anthology series, and you can get the whole first season on Apple TV. But it is each episode is a different immigrant story, and they are just beautiful. So anyway, got a call from this producer who was looking for Somali actors because they have an episode in the upcoming season set in Minnesota's Somali community and at the Minnesota State Fair. And so my reaction was, first of all, you have to film it here, which they couldn't do. But my second reaction was, oh my God, if you portray either of those things, either the Somali community or the Minnesota State Fair inaccurately,
Yeah.
hell will rain down on you. We will, it will be a terrible thing. So we started talking, I started talking to Abdi, and Abdi, then you take it from there.
Yeah, no, it was a great call, and that was I definitely known of the film board and your work, and just to kind of get that call afterwards after we had met was great, and that's a show that I think is doing exactly what we'd like to see going forward in the industry, right? Having authentic stories from different communities, highlighting our different experiences, but our kind of shared experiences as well, which I think this show really kind of does a great balance act of doing. And so, yeah, we had that conversation and, got in contact with our friend Scott over there, in LA, and who was a producer of the show. And it was a great experience, especially kind of going on the forefront of learning about the pre-production work that folks were doing and the kind of questions people were asking. Again, this show, not only are they trying to highlight the people through the actors, and their portrayals being authentic, but also just all the little things that people might, overlook with production design, costume design. Like you said, the Minnesota State Fair is a staple in this state, and you can't, be a Minnesotan without having at least, gone to the State Fair once, I think. And it was an amazing experience to see all of those things that, you grew up with here, kind of coming together and really, really showcasing the true tapestry of what it is to be an immigrant in Minnesota. And so, yeah, that was a great experience getting to learn a bit about the how the sausage is made in film, and especially in television. I mean, but working on something that had to do with such a close subject at hand, which is our culture. I think that was the biggest privilege of all in that experience, as well as getting to meet great storytellers and actors and professionals, such as Abdimalik and Sharmaarke, was great to see, and I think that's something that kind of sets the tone going forward. So yeah.
Well, for you guys as actors, talk a little bit about what your experiences have been in trying to get cast, and what kind of roles you're being offered, and some of the challenges that you're dealing with.
Should I start?
Yes, go right ahead.
All right. So, I've been in LA for over let's say 5 years now, and I'm just experiencing a little success here and there, but for the most part, I realized I didn't fit anywhere at all, and so I had to start creating things and figuring out how to just kind of stand out. And but for some reason, here in LA, there's plenty of people that wants to work. And during the pandemic 2020, that's when I had the biggest realization. And I said, look, if I wait from someone to give me a job, it may not happen. But if I create something and I have something with me, then there will be doors that's open. So I started creating a small team who are writers, directors, and everything all together. And I'm the actor, and we've done a couple shorts, and some of them did good. And on top of that, I do have agents and managers that's helping me. But aside from that, this industry, it's like I just start feeling that, okay, now I feel like I have a spot in here, meaning before 2020, I didn't think it was possible, but yet I was just pushing it, but now I can kind of relax a little bit and see people kind of paying attention to Somali actors, the Somali community. I was a part of the Anthology TV show, and I was so happy to see that a whole Somali cast in one episode. To me, I said, this is the biggest opportunity I've ever seen, and I need to be a part of it. But somehow I ended up being a part of it, and I was one of the actors. And I really, really am happy that there are more opportunities like that are opening up, for actors like us. But again, as a Somali man, I feel like we're in the beginning of, something amazing. And it's just up to us to take it more serious and be professional, to just kind of keep pushing it, because nothing is easy in this industry. Nothing is easy and nothing is promised, but you just have to stay level-headed and, keep going, and a lot of, and have faith. I mean, it's all about faith. So that was my biggest, motivation and push.
Great. Abdimalik, talk about your experience a little bit, both with the recent show and what you're doing now and looking forward to.
Well, as Abdi said, it all kind of started, my journey towards trying to become a filmmaker started when I was a kid, and I would move around a lot, and I met a lot of people, and naturally you start to see how people differ around the world and how individual stories can look so differently, depending on where you are. And so I really started to have a deep appreciation for that. And as I grew older, I started to become a cinephile. I pretty much considered like my local theater like my home, my second home. I spent so much time there. And I knew once I took a gap year during COVID that I was going to try to figure out how to do this, how to make this my life. And it's really interesting to hear the genesis of how this, like the Minnesota Film and TV was reached out by the producer and then Abdi, because the way I found out about it was Abla, who works on the show, posted the casting call, and it kind of went viral a little bit in the Somali community. Everybody was sharing it on Instagram. And so I was like, well, this kind of came at a perfect time. I had never actually like went up for any casting call before. So I just decided to shoot my shot because I, first of all, loved the show already and I had watched the whole series. And it felt like the perfect opportunity. So I shot my shot and they got back to me, and then eventually it happened. So
Great.
yeah,
That's so cool.
I know it's very, very rare for your first ever opportunity to actually work out. So I'm very grateful for that. And moving forward, I'm going back to school in September. I plan to start taking some filmmaking classes and to apply for some fellowships to further that filmmaking. And yeah, make this as like the first stepping stone for a larger journey.
That's
I mean,
fantastic.
what a stone to step on, right? Like, with your, and to further, I feel like both of your points, I mean, with Sharmaarke mentioning, as an actor having to, kind of become a multi-hyphen. That's what we're seeing with a lot of, actors nowadays: producer, writer, director. Thinking of the Issa Raes, the Donald Glovers, folks kind of paving way because they don't see themselves on screen. So there's now a new kind of a new actor coming on board where it's your storytellers at the end of the day, and growing into your own. So I mean, I'm glad to hear Sharmaarke state that. And for Abdimalik, I mean, I think you kind of hit on a major point here, major theme, where once the ad for actors went up for Little America, the community reacted, and there's such a hunger for Somali stories from the Somali community in the diaspora, because as folks meant, I mean, again, like with Sharmaarke's experience and with Abdimalik's experience, we're in Europe, we're in in Africa, in the Middle East, and all coasts of the United States and Canada. So we're a global community, a global diaspora that even within our own experiences have our own different stories. I mean, we had Somalis from Sweden working on this project with us, and just an amazing experience that folks had. And there's, again, like with our community, we want to see ourselves reflected on screen. We want to see authentic stories that we can really relate to, and just feel that are not exploitative, because again, with our history in the industry, it's been a bit tough for us, especially on that front.
Yeah, I did want to address that and talk about that. I mean, I think most folks, at least most Americans, most white Americans, are probably familiar with maybe two films or two projects, Captain Phillips, you know, and we can talk about that. But also on the other end of the spectrum, I think is Castle Rock, which I think is for folks that haven't watched it. The second, was it the second season?
Second season, yeah.
Yeah, it was second season.
Yeah, yeah. So you want to tell us a little bit about that and how folks in the community reacted to that, if it was important?
Absolutely. And before I even get into Captain Phillips and Castle Rock, I mean, there's one other major movie that introduced the world, I think, to the Somali folks, which is Black Hawk Down.
Oh, God. Yeah, of course.
And
yeah,
I mean, that is, if we go down the list of all the things that they did wrong in that film, I mean, it's an endless list. Not only did they cast non-Somali actors, the language was off. Again, the people, you know, and you know, there's so many things that I think that we've learned from that since then, and it's a different era now, but still there's such a ways to go. But that film really was, you know, kind of showcasing just the story from this perspective of the military, you know, us being violent, just, you know, it was erasure, you know, plain and simple. And it really kind of showcased our culture, our people. And one of the most devastating things to happen in our history in Somalia as just an action movie, rather than, you know, a situation that, you know, created tens of thousands of refugees around the world in, you know, refugee camps and really stripped a lot of folks of our homeland. But just to kind of be, you know, the next military movie. So that, you know, that film, I think, kind of really set a tone, and not the best of tones for us in cinema and film. But going forward, you know, with Captain Phillips, I mean, again, it launched, you know, great careers for folks like Barkal Abdi, Faisal Ahmed, Barkal Abdurrahman. So it was, you know, something that really put, you know, people put Somalia on the map in another way that wasn't, you know, what we would like. I mean, based on a true story, of course, you know, we got Tom Hanks playing, you know, Captain Phillips, the hero. But out of that fruit of labor, and we get, you know, some of the actors who are now highlighted and have been able to participate in some really great stories and kind of have us on that level. And I put that akin to a lot of the experience that Black actors and directors have when telling stories of Black trauma, or, you know, gangster films, or things that, you know, are kind of also limiting to the spectrum of Black experience. And then since then, Castle Rock, I think, was the next iteration of that, which put us in, you know, I mean, I can go all day about, you know, sci-fi and horror. So for us to, you know, enter that genre is expansive and opens a lot of doors. But I think that was an interesting one, very similar to experience in Little America, where, you know, the Somali community, not only in terms of actors, lead actors were recruited, but also extras. I mean, that's another experience, just in terms of like the opportunities for folks behind the scenes, you know, in front of the camera, behind the camera, and also just, you know, getting experience being on set and just having the peripheral experience of being in a film or television show. But those would just be the few experiences I could definitely highlight off top.
I also,
I just want to make one point. One of the things that I loved about Castle Rock was seeing a Somali woman portraying a doctor. I mean, you know, she's not a pirate, she's not a terrorist. She's a doctor.
I did reach out to her. She was unable to join. She's also in England. So again, about that diaspora. But
right.
You also talk about the Gravedigger's wife.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's in terms of the steps going from Black Hawk Down to Captain Phillips to Castle Rock to now having the Gravedigger's wife. I'm glad you brought that up, Sharmaarke. We had, this film is a Somali-made film in terms of the writer being Somali, the director and producer, and also being shot in Djibouti, which is a predominantly Somali country, part of, you know, as folks say, greatest. It's its own country, but the Somali diaspora and Somali country and language is there. And so, I mean, what a wonderful experience that film. The director Khadir Ahmed was telling us a bit about his experience in developing that project. So it premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, one of the biggest film festivals in the world, and you know, he had the chance of actually developing and incubating that project at their institute for 4 months. And, because of, God bless Europe with their great arts programs and funding and, resources that they can have, support for the arts there. He really, coming from Finland, really worked on a international production, which we rarely see anymore. Finland, Germany, France, all came together to back this project. But at the end of the day, it was a Somali tale from a Somali perspective about a love story. And if folks haven't seen The Gravedigger's Wife yet, hopefully, there's going to be a chance to online. But we had 3 amazing screenings here in the Twin Cities just recently, all sold out. The community really showed up. Same way as Abdimalik was mentioning, the casting call, people responding quickly and going viral. That response from the community here locally was great. I'm still getting people, asking me like, "Hey, is there going to be another screening? I missed the last 3." I'm like, "Yo, you got 3 chances. I don't know what's on your schedule, guys." But it was great, and I'm glad to see, because that's the next step again. Which all of these things, progress unfortunately takes time, and it's not because of where we are at as storytellers or creatives in our culture, but it's kind of convincing the folks who have the levers of power, whether they be producers or folks who we might say, "Oh, what's the marketability of this," and whatnot. He spoke about this a bit at the screenings, where the Somali language in that film was so important for him. And it's something that, could touch different generations, the older generation, our generation, and those after us, to see a story told in Somali, and especially a love story too, where everyone, not only on the behind the camera, in front of the camera, but also just linguistically, how far this could go, was an amazing, especially at the production level that it was. So Qadr made a point that folks had asked him to change the language, and folks had kind of, push and pulled and try to influence this and that. But he really, stood his ground on stating that this film had to be in Somali, and there's a point for that. He had an audience in mind. And when people recognize, especially folks who are interested in telling stories from, different cultures and highlighting folks and seeing that there's a not only a rich interest in our people, but for others to learn about other cultures. I think now we've come to a place in our society, in our world, that we realize there's a lot more similarities and differences. And what's something that people can relate to than a love story that The Gravedigger's Wife was made of.
Yeah. And I just want to say that film was screened as part of the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Film Festival, and Abdi put together the post-screening discussions for that. And I think that really the MS Film Society is going to continue to look for opportunities to highlight Somali stories in their programming as they have expanded their theater and their ability. So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's been great. It's been, definitely shouts out. We've got a lot of great organizations, of course, I'm in Film TV, but also, the Film Society, Film North. But yeah, I just to have them be receptive to that and facilitate that discussion was great. And so just definitely want to let folks know there are talks of some of those things happening in the very near future. So people should definitely stay tuned.
And something interesting that, because earlier you mentioned a Somali British actress. There was a film a couple years ago called Rocks that had an actress named Kosar Ali who was nominated for a BAFTA. Her
also reached out to her, so great actress. Yeah,
absolutely. And I know that I read an interview about her once where she said that they came to recruit from their acting class in their secondary school. Wow. So just I feel like I really appreciate how people are now looking for people that don't necessarily have the opportunities to figure out how to get into certain rooms and how to find certain casting calls. They go to them and they try to cast them from where they are, which led her to getting a BAFTA nomination for her first role. So that was super exciting.
That is great. So how do we, what are the prospects, do you think, for really Somali-led projects, Somali-led stories? Because we want Somali actors to work, but
Yeah,
the story should be told by the folks that have lived them.
absolutely.
So what do you guys think about the prospects for the future? Will this Little America episode maybe spark something?
I
Yes.
definitely I want to let Sharmaarke answer this, especially with his work there.
Yes, I think right now in LA, before let's say 2020, I mean, people did not recognize even who I am. A lot of times they mention, they tell me I'm Ethiopian or something like that. But right now I'm experiencing, even within the industry, how people are paying attention to me as an actor. And of course, not only that, but they know that I'm Somali, and they know there are certain projects. I'm hoping this will change, and there will be more things, on the way, like a project that I'm working on called City Heights, which I think it's going to change the narrative of how Somali people are looked at. And it's, but moving forward, I'm hoping things will open, like there will be more doors for a Somali actor. I just feel like that I'm more confident right now in a lot of, like, different actors that I'm meeting. I never knew, like, many Somali actors or directors or anything like that, but right now I see a lot, and it makes me happy and makes me realize, I'm like, oh, this is a wave, that is going somewhere. And my only thing is just, as a Somali person, is like, I need to represent, or show the world, hey, this is who we are as a people. And if you don't represent yourself, I don't think people will actually represent you. So that is my only goal and intention moving forward.
Yeah.
Great. So tell me a little bit about the project that you mentioned. What is it? What stage are you in? Will people be able to see it?
Yes, I mean, are you talking the City Heights?
City Heights, yeah.
Script, it's already done, and we have taken to multiple different places, such as Marlon Wayans saw it. A lot of people are interested in it, and it's based in a city called City Heights in San Diego. So San Diego is one of the finest city, but in City Heights, nobody knows it. It's a small community where we have uh, uh, Asians, we have Latinos, and we have Somalis, and somehow we found a way to live together and find peace. The interesting thing about that city is basically you see a temple right next to the mosque, right next to a church,
Right.
and everyone is peaceful and everyone accepted each other. So this story, it takes place in that city. It's about a kid who moved from Somalia, and have dreams and aspirations of becoming a part of the American society, but it turns out otherwise for him. And he 9/11 happened, and his world changed all of a sudden. And he becomes a cop, trying to find a way out of City Heights, because coming from Somalia, as a Somali man, we think America, everything is beautiful, what I'm saying? And so when he comes to San Diego, he realizes he needs to get out of this place to be able to live the real America. So his only way out is becoming a cop. And then when he becomes a cop, 9/11 happens. And 9/11 happens, his world changed. Now he has to find out a way to survive and figure it out again. So it's such a crazy story. If I get the opportunity, to send it to you guys, I will. If you guys want, the script. Right now, we are in the middle of just shopping here and there, and as I already said, my partner's name is Luis Pisto. Him and I, we've been writing this project for over 4 years, and we've been in multiple different rooms. And we have Bakat Abdi, who is attached to it too. And as he's playing my uncle. It's really it can change the narrative of how Somalis in City Heights are looked.
Yeah.
Change it bit by bit. So my intention and goal is to be able to kind of add something to the, to the narrative and push forward in the right direction.
Absolutely. I should say San Diego is the second largest population of Somalis in the United States. So like that City Heights area that Sharmaarke is talking about, very, very cultural and just a great, great place. And I mean, the technicalities would be interesting, but if we can shoot it in Minnesota, and like do the, extend, like we have the community here, and that's something that and folks like, right? Yeah.
Of course, we are open for anything, what I'm saying, because this is film and you can shoot anywhere you want to,
Yeah.
And if it's Minnesota and we have full support from Minnesota, yes, we are willing to bring something. It's, to me, it's the same for me, where
and Van who's a producer and amazing person and a champion of Minnesota filmmaking, says we can fake the Pacific. I mean, we can just go to Duluth right now. I mean,
right.
We could just probably ship in some palm trees. I don't know, CGI, but it could just be, it could be a cross state project, of course.
Minnesota can double for just about any place. So
actually, I know there's a short movie that I'm shooting called 10 Wise, and it's taking place in Minnesota, but we're filming here in LA, and we buy it's the story is based on George Floyd and how it affects families. It's taking place we are filming in LA. We didn't have the budget to film in Minneapolis, but hopefully the next project I would love to bring to Minnesota, and
that would be great. Well, you make this short and then maybe you develop it into a feature and bring it here. So
definitely that's the goal.
No, that'd be amazing. I just want to kind of speak about that point of 9/11, right, that you mentioned, and just kind of where our community was in terms of, like, especially under such surveillance, and what we saw with one project I forgot to mention earlier with didn't come to fruition, but HBO's
the HBO
Mogadishu,
project, right?
Yeah, which that was, I was there the day that there was a demonstration protest against, kind of the filming of it. And the same way that our community shows up to support something that we like and show that, and show that love, we also are very vocal in our disapproval of negative images. And I think that's very unique. And I think that's something that the industry should listen to. Because there have been time and time again for years, right, that people have seen projects that they say, in hindsight, that wasn't really, accurate or did us justice. But we'll tell you in real time in our community, and we don't shy away from that at all, because we know what the impact of that is. I mean, there's research to showcase that, positive imagery for a community highlights how they're seen by society as a whole. So it's important to see that.
For folks who aren't familiar with that, this was
2015,
2016. Before I was here, HBO shot a pilot here in Minnesota. It was called Mogadishu, Minnesota. And I never read the script, but I think it had to do with recruitment. And and it was apparent, it was problematic, and the portrayals were problematic. Ultimately, the pilot was shot. HBO decided not to pick it up. So our hope is that HBO will be back with something better. So we will keep talking to them. But I mean, what could have been different? I mean, how could that have been different? What could this office have done? What could HBO have done to have a better experience?
I mean, it's such a good question, and there's so many different angles to take on that. I mean, just for me personally, it was interesting because that day I was helping on a project that ended up, a documentary, Accept a Call on PBS. We were actually doing a documentary on the families of the young men who were, were on trial. and how their experience was. So it was kind of interesting that we're telling the authentic story behind the headlines and interviewing the people who were impacted by this. Because it's like, if you're not going to talk about the entrapment piece from the federal agents who, had wires on these young men, and, that there was financial incentives for folks to be, so it's, it's interesting that I'm sure that all that was left out. And so working on that documentary, and that was actually my first article, was talking about the importance of our image, where I highlighted how, that pilot really showed that we have an image, an issue with our image being taken and distorted. So, again, we spoke about Captain Phillips and the piracy narrative, and then also with HBO, the terrorist narrative, where there's already hate crimes. I mean, we had a mosque bombing not that long ago in this state, and we've had vandalism and attacks, and things like that reinforce a negative narrative. And it's not to say that those subjects can't be talked about or broached. I mean, things might happen, but it's not to say that, but at the end of the day, there has to be a bit of delicacy and honesty, and the holistic picture of entrapment, of the war on terror, and the effects of what's happened in Iraq, the drone war, so much that has to be factored in, rather than a story, especially coming from, I think a lot of people were upset at the names tied to that project.
Right.
With people feeling as though, Catherine Bigelow's work on Zero Dark 30 was something that almost, was justifying or, glorifying torture. So I think, people, so again, coming to community leaders, people who, have social credit in the community, whether they're, neighborhood associated. There's the religious leaders, teachers, people going to them and making sure that, okay, is this story authentic? Do you feel as though this is accurate representation to you in the community? And again, just with the perspective of the work on Little America, I mean, people were coming to me about questions about clothing, food, but also just like, okay, would this be fine? I mean, we were shooting at the beginning of Ramadan, where folks were able to break their fasts, and like just that kind of cultural inclusivity and thoughtfulness that was a part of that production, I think should be something that factors into the thinking of more work done in the future. But with HBO, I mean, again, that show from its genesis, I think there were many different problems, but going forward, I think when it comes to our communities, there does have to be, people have to think a bit, unconventionally when it comes to this. I think Hollywood also loves to kind of shroud things in mystery, and they don't announce it till like everything's finally done. But if you're working with a community, you want them to back it. They should want us to be the #1 champions of these things, because we'll tell our moms, our aunties, our uncles, we'll tell our cousins, you know what I mean, like states away, countries away, and we'll support something like this at a broader level, as long as it's just real.
Yeah.
I also would like to add this in this project, Little America. What was so amazing about it was there were Somali females who were working behind the scenes, which I have never experienced. And as soon as I saw them, I felt super comfortable, serious, and knowing that, okay, they got me, so we need people like that to be able to work behind the scenes everywhere. It's very, very important. And as an actor, then it's, you feel extra responsibility of just, all right, I need to do my job 150% to make this thing simple for everyone. So to me, that's one thing I took out from it. By the way, I am about to log off.
I know you gotta go, but thank you so much.
Thank you, guys, Melody and Jill, for giving this opportunity, and Abdi and Adim, it's really amazing, and hopefully we'll keep in touch, and I will send you the script.
Yeah, that would be great. I look forward to meeting you in person. So
thank you so much. You guys have a good one.
Thank you.
Take care, bro.
And that is a good segue into a reminder. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, we are doing this PA workshop on June 25th. So if you are looking to get into the industry and be a vital part of crew, Jill just put in the chat the link to where you can sign up for that. It's a free workshop. And the woman who is running it is based in Atlanta and has been doing some amazing work in television for years. And hopefully after we do this online version, we'll be able to bring Alicia to Minnesota to do a 2-day version of this, a more intense workshop.
That'd be
So
amazing.
yeah. And one other thing that I wanted to just say is in terms of the HBO show, I think just to state clearly that we've kind of said this already, but to me, it's not just mistakes were made, or, that it was problematic. There were problematic characters, but at that point, and up and through recently, there's only been one version of Somali Americans or Somalis. It's pirates, terrorists. Just like every group has to deal with stereotypes in media, and I think until we see Somali actors portraying characters that don't have a Somali-based storyline, just
absolutely.
the doctor,
Yeah, no, the doctor, with Yusra. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And that point Sharmaarke made about folks behind the camera is so essential. That I think we can say this because she's giving a talk about it tomorrow, but Idil Ibrahim was the writer of the episode, a Somali woman who's a director and writer. And so for her to, help bring this idea about knowing the culture and seeing it and bringing what we see at the end of it to fruition was amazing. We also had Ifrah Ahmed as our language consultant there, working with the script coordinator, going over lines, making sure the language was authentic and right. But yeah, like just having a whole human experience of, what it is to be just a person, a human being, is key in terms of telling people. It's not, for folks who, because I think they put us in this box because they think it's so complicated. But it's like, no, like again, with the Gravedigger's Wife, that's a love story at the end of the day. We've seen that hundreds of times on screen. It's just, you just change the different culture that it's with. And when you tell it from that perspective, from a different culture, you just bring folks on board, or you work with folks for telling those stories. But at the same end result is our shared humanity and our shared experiences. I mean, the love that I have for filmmaking comes from, and I think Abdimalik was mentioning this, is just learning about other people's stories. And you just see, oh, that's someone who's, they're having family issues, or this is a story about, the hero's journey. This person has a goal that they're going for. This person has a dream that they're trying to chase. Those are things that we can all relate to. And I think what that does is heightens our sensitivity to one another, our appreciation of one another, and just our way of empathizing. And I think that's the great responsibility that we have as storytellers in this work that we do, is just showing the wide range of our humanity.
That is fantastic. We would love to see the entire breadth of the Somali experience on film, and especially if it's made here, because that's our goal. We want these films made here. We're getting close to time, so I want to check and see if we have questions or comments. But before that, do you have any idea when the second season of Little America is going to be available?
Tentative. I mean, what I can say is that the first season dropped like about 2 years ago in January.
Okay.
So typically that might be something, we might see in January of 2023, possibly, just because of a lot of these places kind of want to have the uniform, kind of scheduled consistency there. But hopefully, if there's a way that things can kind of come up quicker. And what I'd love to do is tap in with them to have a screening, kind of make it an event.
I was just going to say that. And if anyone from MSP Film is in the audience, now that they have all 5 screens of the main theater, I think we would, for us to be able to arrange a public screening would be so exciting and
Be a
so
really
much
great
fun.
time.
So,
Speaking of events, I mean, Abdimalik was recently at the Cannes Film Festival this year. Could you speak a bit about that experience? And then I definitely can get to Q&As, but I just want to get a little bit of info on that.
you went to Cannes?
Yes. Well, I had spent like a month and a half in Egypt in Cairo. My sister lives there and studies there, so I wanted to visit her, and also it kind of served as a vacation to sort of cap in my gap year. And I had left my travel plans open-ended at the end of my month because I had applied to get accreditation as like for their 3-day in Cannes program. And 2 weeks before I was gonna leave Cairo, I was like, I have to book my ticket back home now. They're not gonna accept me. And that same day, they sent me the acceptance email.
Your life, man.
I know it was it was insane. I was looking for my flight as the email dropped.
First acting experience, Little
I know.
America. First festival experience.
I know.
Like
Wow.
casual.
Everything kind of lined up so perfectly. So
That's
yeah, on the Tuesday of the opening day, I flew from Cairo to Austria to Nice, and then I took a train to Cannes. And then I spent the next 4 days watching films. I think I watched like 15 films. One of them I watched twice. So it was like a morning till night sort of ordeal. The cool thing about it is everything is curated. So even if you don't get into a screening that's hyped and that everybody wants to get into, because the tickets will go like within 2 milliseconds on the website, you can like trust that something that you walk into, even if you have no idea who it is or if it's a first time filmmaker, that there's a good chance that it's probably going to be pretty good. And pretty much everything I saw was quite great. And I got the opportunity to meet some filmmakers who it was their first time making a feature, and they got accepted into like the side programs like the Acid or to the Director's Fortnight. And it was really cool just being in a space where everybody that's there, is avid about their love for cinema, and it doesn't. You can feel the energy in every screening that you enter. That these are your people, and people here care about it just as much as you do, which is a great feeling.
That's amazing. That is so cool.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, Jill, are there any questions or anything that you want to throw out from our attendees?
Our friend Susan from MSPIF said, let's have that screening. And she said they've been talking with Mohamed Treek about screening his film at the Main over Somali Independence Day weekend. And also congrats on your trip to Cannes.
Seriously.
That's great. All right. Well, guys, I think we're going to wrap up here. Any final thoughts? I want to thank you both for being part of this conversation. This was so much fun.
It was great.
Do we have a question there coming in, Jill?
Yes. What is the 3-day accreditation program at Cannes?
So for people that don't know, the Cannes Film Festival is primarily for film professionals, so the people who work on these films, and for film journalists. But they have a couple programs where they allow, for example, film students to come with their classes, or they have a program called the Cinephile program, where if you're part of say a film group, you can apply with your group and then all come over together. And then recently, I think in 2019, they started the 3-day in Cannes program for people who are really interested in film that are not eligible for like the full program to apply, and you just have to write a little like essay or like a 1-pager about why you care about film. And if you're lucky, you get accepted. And I know that there was quite a lot of people that were accepted. So Yeah, you can apply for either the first 3 days or the last 3 days. So whichever you prefer, to be at the opening ceremony or the closing ceremony. Yes, I was at the first 3 days.
Yeah. I
So
was gonna say that's the kind of stuff that people need to know about, right? Like what like these type of programs, and I've been lucky to connect with organizations like yours, Melody, and again SPNN, the Film Society, Film North. Yeah. So and now I'm really looking forward to the Catalyst Story Institute coming up. I think there's an event on the 20th of How to Pitch TV that I'm looking forward to, but also this September. And late in the fall there, but just tapping in and putting yourself out there and showcasing your love for film really brings people in terms of community. Also, the Women in Film, Thank You Van, has a great chapter here, and I definitely encourage folks to find community, and that's what it's about. It's a filmmaking is a collaborative endeavor. We all have great stories to tell, and we can help each other share those stories. But I'm really proud to be a part of this community in this state, and
that is fantastic. And Jill just put a link to local film organizations that's on our website, which I was just going to mention, and I think that is a great way to end. Get involved. There's so much happening in Minnesota. We're rebuilding this industry, and everybody should be a part of it. Everybody has to be a part of it, from Duluth to Minneapolis to St. Paul to Rochester, all over the state. So thank you all so much. This was a great conversation, and we will keep everyone posted on the premiere of the next season of Little America and our screening at the Film Society.
Absolutely. Well,
thank
you guys.
you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Have a great summer.